Test, test.
Oh yeah, it's happy 8. Happy 8. We'll get through. Great.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, just a reminder, everyone, make sure your microphones are nice up.
Making sure mine's on. I don't believe it was on.
What?
Hopefully, thank you for trying to protect me from embarrassment. You got your job ahead of you. If it's okay. Do you have any adjustments or additions to the agenda tonight? We've got a full plate, even though we don't have any projects in front of us. So hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to read the minutes from the last meeting. If so, the chair would entertain a motion.
Motion minutes from the previous meeting be approved.
All right, we have a motion. Mr. Cole.
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Foster, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I'm
Now is
sorry,
it-
Mr. Chairman, can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Oh, I thought we did. Oops. Sorry about that. Now you got your job in front of you too. So I apologize for that. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right,
I'll second.
and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you for that. I always did read ahead in school. Got me in trouble a lot. Is there any public comment? All right. Old business. Doesn't appear that we have any old business. So for new business, we have item A, a special use permit process and multifamily procedures text amendment, TXT 23-02. Mr. Malachek?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So staff's been working behind the scenes just on a special use permit process update for a while, just based upon best practices. And specifically, one of the things we wanted to change was the registered mailing requirement, just because it's costing the department so much to just send registered mailings for special use permits. But also, when council approved conditional zoning last fall, they also directed staff to start a text amendment to change multifamily application and submittal processes from special use permits to conditional zoning only. So we figured two birds with one stone, and package it all together here, since it all addresses special use permit procedures. So again, one I mentioned already that's addressed here is the ordinances have always required us to send USPS registered mail. This is the only development process requires registered mailing. Everything else, rezonings, variances, etc., we do first class mailings. And again, that's costing the department a lot of money for special use permits. And then for the process changes for special use permits, I'll go through the different ordinance sections after, but just highlighting a few changes. So one of them is that currently there's a preliminary review of special use permit applications by the planning board, and I'm proposing to strike that out. And for minor special use permits, the ordinance gives the Board of Adjustment the option to refer minor special use permits to the planning board. That also is removed. Basically, and we've known this for a while, if you look at School of Government best practices, because the planning board is not a quasi-judicial body. Um, again, that anything coming out of the planning board review is not usable in the hearing itself. So it's better legal practice to exclude the planning board from quasi-judicial decisions or applications because it really just creates the potential for an appeal or a challenge, because there's the potential that something heard in the planning board review could be referred to in the special use permit hearing, and then that's inadmissible evidence. So again, trying to get rid of that conflict. And then again, I mentioned the changes to the multifamily development ordinance, changing that specifically to conditional zoning. Getting into a little more detail of each of them. So registered mailings right now are $15 letter versus 63 cents for a first class letter. So for every special use permit, which I believe the fee for minor is 500 or 350 and major is 500 or 750, but we're losing half of the permit fee cost just through the mailing requirement. So this is something we've had our eyes on to change for a while. And then we also heard from citizens they don't like opening registered mail because they think it's some type of code enforcement action or
Jury duty.
jury duty or something legal.
Sure.
So we feel both will be saving the taxpayer money and also getting people to open their mail for public notices if we just go to first class mail for everything, which again, all other land use decisions use first class mailing currently.
Michael, is that just, do you know what the history on that? Was there a reason for that, or is it just
Beyond me.
Okay.
No idea. Yeah.
enough for me?
So again, going to the planning board review, and I understand, this affects this board here, so I'm happy to hear everyone's opinions about this, but basically involving the planning board for a preliminary review of quasi-judicial decisions creates a potential conflict in legal liability for ex parte communication, impartiality, disclosure of information before the hearing, etc. Because again, the planning board review and any comments or presentations made cannot be considered in any way in the quasi-judicial hearing, whether it's a major special use permit with the quasi-judicial hearing before council or a minor special use permit with the quasi-judicial hearing before the Board of Adjustment. And then again, as I stated, UNC School of Government best practices in the quasi-judicial handbook, which we actually, I think we give that out to Board of Adjustment members. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Basically states
Yes.
that it actually says that preliminary review or advisory review of a quasi-judicial application by an advisory board is quote poses significant legal concerns to the process, because again, only evidence or testimony presented in the decision-making board's hearing can be part of that evidentiary hearing. So basically, staff has removed preliminary reviews of special use permits by the planning board for both major special use permits and minor special use permits. The way the ordinance is currently written, major special use permits, like if some of you remember the townhome development, usually come to the planning board first. It's dictated by the ordinance now. Minor special use permits, the ordinance just says the Board of Adjustment has the option to refer to the planning board for feedback. And then again, summing up the change in the process for multifamily developments. So the main change is that with special use permits, if a multifamily developer comes in, applies for a special use permit, and they meet our ordinance standards, they legally we are bound to issue the permit to them, because again, in our ordinance we're putting out these requirements to the public that they know they need to make the investment to meet those requirements. And so again, per state land use law, if they meet what we publicly put out there, we're bound to issue the permit. And that was kind of the case with the townhome development as well. With conditional zoning, it's a much more flexible development process that allows some things to be changed beyond what our ordinance allows in the development. But it also allows non-quasi-judicial evidence basically into consideration, just like a normal rezoning. So if you have a property owner in a special use permit hearing that would come up and speak against it, they would have to have either an attorney or a licensed appraiser saying their property is being negatively impacted. In a conditional zoning hearing, you can have someone come up and say, well, this is going to affect my view, have no photographic evidence, and that can still be considered by the decision-making body. And then again, since we're changing it to conditional zoning, we want to remove all the special use permit provisions from multifamily as well. I know that's a lot. Staff's recommending approval of all these, but let me just go through, let me wake my computer up, and we'll go through the actual ordinance sections just so I can highlight some of these changes. Does anyone have any questions at this time before I dive into the language?
Would that conditional zoning, would that be able to be used anywhere in the town, or I think when we did it, we limited it to the corridors?
Yeah, so it would be limited to the future land use map districts, and I'm blanking on the two, but community center,
Community center.
industrial,
Mhm.
and community crossroads, I believe.
Community crossroads, remember that. Okay.
Okay, so attachment A here. First, we're going to go through the special use permit changes, just the process, nothing about multifamily. So again, this is in the exceptions and modifications section of the zoning code, which talks about the special use permit processes. And so you can see here where I've changed some of the language, basically where it said before applications shall be transmitted to the zoning board of adjustment, which could refer to the planning board. I basically state that it comes to the zoning administrator who makes sure it's complete, and then the zoning administrator schedules the evidentiary hearing with the clerk, of course, for the board of adjustment. You can see registered, the mailing requirement changed here. And there were some other errors in the code. Anytime we go through, we just try to correct any other inconsistencies. So again, for major special use permits, you can see old ordinance language said application transmitted immediately to the council and then refer to planning board for review and recommendation. I'm suggesting we strike that and basically, again, state zoning administrator reviews application for completeness and then requests a hearing before council. Again, mailing requirements are addressed here. And then I just threw in a couple of our other recently adopted plans for consideration. And that's the end of that section. For attachment B, a lot of the special use permit procedures are in this section, zoning board of adjustment and town council. And so again, on this first page, just some minor corrections. This ordinance actually still referred to conditional use permits, so we made those changes to special use permits. And then again, you can see starting on this page, basically striking references to the planning board and just referring to the quasi-judicial boards themselves. Again, just clarifying language about some of the standards. And then as we go into the section about town council, obviously they're hearing major special use permits. But again, the old ordinance stated it should go to the planning board first for review and recommendation. And that's what's been struck out here. The notice requirements are the same. Again, just clarifying the language and pointing to the correct section of the ordinance that describes that. And that's basically the end of the special use permit procedures ordinance language. Any questions there before I move to multifamily?
Any questions? Any questions? Okay, sir.
So under multifamily is under our special provisions or special development section of the zoning code. So you can see here that in the old ordinance language, it was allowed as a special use under a major special use permit. And so we're just changing that to conditional zoning district development and then pointing back to the conditional district ordinances that were adopted by council last fall. So again, conditional zoning district development subject to final decision-making authority of town council on advice and recommendation of the planning board per the procedures in the conditional zoning section. So I guess a change to point out, although in the special use permit section, we're removing or proposing to remove the planning board from preliminary reviews, With multifamily changing to conditional zoning, because it's a rezoning, even though it's conditional, the planning board will be involved in preliminary reviews of all multifamily development if this is adopted.
Conditioning doesn't have to go through Board of Adjustments at any point.
No, because you just consider it, again, it's a lengthier process, but just think of it like a rezoning. It's still going to come to planning board for review, recommendation, consistency, and then to council. And again, in a legislative hearing where it's a lot more open versus quasi judicial.
Sure.
That's one of the main changes there. Again, just some clarifying language. I did make a reference to the lighting ordinance. Jeff likes that.
Go back to the first page of C.
Yes,
Sorry.
first page.
Question on the acreage
Mm-hmm.
at the bottom.
Hmm.
Was that something, item A5, page 1 of attachment C?
Oh. I believe that's because for conditional, so for multifamily developments,
Oh, condition.
under special use permit, the minimum
It can
size
be
is
less.
1.5.
There
But
it
with conditional zoning, any conditional zoning submittal has to be
Has to
2
be.
acres.
So that was blanket regardless of, yeah.
Just making it consistent
Okay,
throughout.
great.
Yeah. Hmm.
Thanks.
Good catch though. Yeah. So again, there was already a section on exterior lighting. So again, we just referenced, again, as people look at this and potential applicants come through, just cueing them that we would like to see a lighting plan and would expect that for any multifamily development, because usually those are going to be of a larger size. The timing section changed. Again, this is really just deleting special use permit timing and application process timing, and basically taking in from the conditional zoning ordinance the timing regarding preliminary master plan submittals versus final master plan submittals. Again, under pre-application conference, changing from planning board to zoning administrator. Because again, with conditional zoning, the planning board will look at this, but usually pre-application conferences happen with the zoning administrator just to make sure they're following the process correctly and submitting everything appropriately. And then this is probably one of the other heavier edited sections. So again, under 2 on this page, changing special use permit to conditional zoning and planning board to town staff. And then really on 3 here, you can see basically it's changing to the preliminary and final master plans for conditional zoning versus a development plan or site plan that would be submitted with a special use permit. So again, really just looking at the conditional zoning ordinance that was adopted and implementing that and including some of the language here. Again, just changing some of this language to refer to the conditional zoning terms, master plan versus development plan, multifamily versus planned residential development. And that's the end of that section. The last one is super simple. Our MR30. So normally every zoning district ordinance should list what special uses can be applied for. MR30 was our only one that actually had that listed out, even though multifamily can happen in MR30, neighborhood commercial or mixed use. But because this was the only one that listed it, I just struck that. So basically, the MR30 ordinance description would be amended to not include multifamily under special use permits. That's the end of the ordinance changes. Happy to entertain
Looks
any
pretty
questions.
straightforward. Does anyone have any questions?
I want to make a comment, and I've made this comment before, and I know Michael's probably getting tired of hearing me make it, about the notification process.
Mhm.
That's fine, what we were talking about here. I still think we need to address the issue of the little sign that's placed in front of the property.
Mhm.
We need one big enough to read as you pass by and get your attention. And it could be, as I said before, you can come up with a 4x8. I've seen it in other places. 4x8 sheet of plywood that says all the basic information, but has a block where you can change it for each individual site. But sometimes in the past we've had these things, and I know from being here that something's under consideration. And I have went out to try to find a little sign, and I found it eventually. So we just need a more prominent notification on the property. I've said that before.
Sounds good. And maybe at some point there'll be a way to reach people.
The clerk handles that side, but usually there's a posting on the website, there's a physical posting in town hall, newspaper advertisements, and then again, if it's a property specific land use decision, variance, special use permit, rezoning, that's when the signs and the letters go out. Letters just to adjacent property owners, and then the sign, we try and put one at every public road frontage. So like when the shopping center came up for the minor special use permit, I think we had one at Vance Hill, Penland, and Emma Sharp, even though they're the old ones. Yeah.
I did find the one just across from Ingles, but that street. I did find a little small sign.
Mhm.
But all of that staying in business.
Yeah, I mean, the signs, obviously, you can only fit so much, and I do think ours need a redesign. There's actually been some conversations on the state planning listserv about that, back and forth here and there. I do think they need to be redesigned. The size, I think, is something up for debate. If you look at every jurisdiction around us, we have the largest signs, public notice signs, I think, of any municipality in the greater Asheville area. Everyone else uses the regular old, what are they, 14 by 11 or whatever it is, signs that you see realtors put out. But I think redesigning them is something that we need, because right now, I think we only have two versions. One talks about a variance request of the property, and then all the rest just say land use / zoning decision. So I would like to have new metal ones. And what I've seen people suggest online is having like a magnet where you can have special use permit and have like a color associated with that, so it'll pop a little more.
Exactly.
And I hear you, Mr. Foster, but with plywood 4x8, I don't think that's realistic. Yeah,
It works, the 4x8 in other areas.
I'm sure.
I've seen them.
Yeah.
I hate to even say this, but I came from Columbus, Georgia, which is the second largest city in the state of Georgia, and that's what they've always used, and it works.
Yeah. Well, we meet the state requirements, and we have the largest signs in the Asheville area, so we're looking at redesigning them. And I hear your comment. Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. If there are no questions, if someone wanted to make a motion.
And we do, don't forget, we have a statement of consistency here. So,
Michael, one quick thing.
Of course.
I know you'll do this, but in attachment C and D, when you completely eliminated item, whatever, 5, you're following markups, 6 became 5, 7 became 6, so on. In B, I just want
one of them word caught it, one of them the word.
okay. So in
app didn't.
B, it's not caught in any of them for some reason. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, those will be
Only because you had it on the other ones.
those will be updated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good eye.
So
Petty.
read the statement of consistency. I can read that. Well, I'm not going to read the whole thing. We'll be here all night, although I do have my reading glasses.
Again, if you agree with it, the only thing we need for the record is a motion for recommendation and adopting the statement of consistency. You can read the text amendment case number and say as presented if you agree with it.
Okay, so if someone would like to make a motion then, and mention the statement of consistency if you agree with it.
You need to say the entire title here. So I make a motion that we approve the revised special use permit process and multifamily procedures text amendment, as well as the planning board statement of consistency.
Sounded good. Is that your motion?
That is my motion.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll say.
All right. That being said, all those in favor?
Aye. Well done on that, Michael. That was a lot of information.
Absolutely.
Well, been working on that one.
We weren't taking the easy way out just to say yes too. It was really well done.
Okay, and this time I've signed this. I'm gonna leave it right here. All right, next, mixed use zoning district discussion.
So this came up during the annexation request, which I'll just let everyone know if you weren't watching the council meeting. Council chose to not move forward with that request. So those properties will not be annexed into the town. But again, when we were, as with a lot of zoning changes and assigning zoning to new properties coming into the town, we look at consistency with the comprehensive plan. And so one of the issues we found is that although mixed use zoning covers 2/3 to 3/4 of our jurisdiction, and a lot of that overlaps with the rural residential future land use category, those two descriptions of the mixed use allowed uses and the rural residential desired uses, seems there's an inconsistency there. So really all I wanted to do, I provided a brief staff report, and I tried to pull out a couple of sections from the comprehensive plan that address both sides, both mixed use having commercial uses with residential in those more rural parts of the town, and then other sections that talk about limiting commercial development in those more outlying rural residential parts of the town. So this is really just information for the board's consideration to inform your discussion. Included, we've got attachment A, the zoning map from the comprehensive plan. We've got attachment B is the future land use map. And then I included 2 pages of the future land use map categories, including the introduction of that section because it describes a little bit, how they should be used. And then finally, attachment D, we have the zoning district description of the mixed use district.
So this is informational. Don't really need to take any action on it.
No, this is just information in response to the planning board's request to discuss this again after what we encountered with the annexation.
Because there were things in the Mills River mixed use that could have been allowed under that original request for rezoning that may or may not fit with the surrounding areas. So that's why the discussion. If I understand correctly, that Mills River mixed use was the least restrictive, thank you, zoning, and that the majority of the town was initially determined to be that. It was made MRMU.
And I think that's a problem.
If we had that to do all over again, years later, with more experience under our belts, we probably wouldn't have that much MRMU.
And I will say, this was going to come in my updates, but we did advertise the request for qualifications for the Unified Development Ordinance project today. And as part of that project, it's not just developing the UDO, but also looking at updating our codes and taking a look at our zoning map. So the comprehensive plan was adopted recently, so we're not touching that. but that is included in the scope of work. Again, I think it's still something important to discuss at this level. But I just wanted to inform the planning board that when we eventually get a consultant for that project, looking at our zoning categories, looking at our zoning map, and making sure it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and our codes will be part of that process.
Excellent.
Now, we're advertising for a consultant already, right?
Correct.
To do this. And then they will come back and present us with suggestions that we can discuss, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's like it's a 2-year project, so
Yeah.
it's the planning
Yeah,
department's
it's not going to be an overnight
Yeah.
project.
it's our first, well, it's my first capital project with the planning department, but yeah, the idea is to hire a consultant. Think of it like a consultant for the comprehensive plan, but instead of comprehensive plan, looking at codes and zoning.
But it all,
Of course, yeah, public outreach, public
Yeah, yeah.
input from all the
do all that,
boards,
yes.
sessions to, again, similar to the comprehensive plan, what zoning people think should go where, all that.
So they'll come here and speak with us and at some point.
Eventually, we just advertised it, so yeah.
Sure.
No, it will not happen behind closed doors. It'll be a very public process with, again, the public, citizens, and all advisory boards and council being involved.
Yeah, and I'm all in favor of that. Open discussion.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Next item is the annual organizational meeting, election of a chair and vice chair, and we'll adopt the meeting schedule. I looked at the meeting schedule and neither my anniversary nor my wife's birthday shows up, so I am cleared to vote yes.
Well, we open the motion.
So if we want to discuss the chair and vice chair, if anyone would like to make a nomination on either of those.
I would like to nominate Jeff to remain as chairman.
I second that.
You're
Since
very-
no dates conflict with his personal life, I second that. So,
You're very kind. Thank you.
absolutely.
Well, is there anyone else who would like to take it? Be careful. I'll nominate you. But it is an honor, and I'm thank you for your confidence and for this opportunity. So if anyone would like to vote, all in favor? I guess that's what we do. We should vote. All in favor?
Aye.
And no opposed? All right. For vice chair, I'd like to nominate Mr. Foster to remain vice chair if he so chooses. And is there anyone else that would like to make a nomination?
I'll second.
Mr. Foster?
I accept.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. And the schedule for the planning board is the first Tuesday of each month. We did move this one because the first Tuesday was so close to New Year's Day that we decided to move this. But future meetings are here. Is there any discussion? All right. If
Is there anything in conflict with the town council meeting you attached here that you know of? Is there anything on a Tuesday for some reason? Okay. Sorry, I couldn't look through it as fast as Jeff is moving tonight. And of all nights to not wear my hearing aids, I haven't heard half of what you guys have said, so.
It was pretty profound, so.
Those were-
I thought you were mighty quiet.
Maybe I just got kicked off. I have no idea.
All those in, no.
Okay, then. Well,
Do we need a motion?
do we need, the chair would accept a motion,
I'll make a motion to accept the schedule as attachment A.
and any seconds?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Looks like we have covered the business. Has there been any public comment come in since we've been online? All right.
Jeff, can
Anyone like to say anything before we go?
just about what, the middle topic here, the 2-year project that the town's doing with the hiring the consultant and zoning and the codes and everything there. I think that it would, and correct me if anyone disagrees with this, I think it would be responsible of us as a planning board to have discussion about that and even take that discussion to the town council, knowing that we're not saying, trying to pass something specific, but to bring have a longer discussion at another meeting about, it's easy to say there's conflict there. There's obviously conflict there. We're going to spend that's 6 figures on that at least. We're going to spend some money on that. It's a significant thing. Knowing that down zoning is something that is an option for the town, knowing that we have a lot of big projects that have come here in the last 20 years that I don't think anyone ever, I think it deserves some thought from each of us individually, then here in a meeting setting, and then maybe 1 or 2, people volunteer to go talk to the council about it at a meeting and just say, hey, we know this is on everyone's mind. We just went through a huge, couple of us, with the land preservation farm. The town's really excited about that, but it also, that and the annexation request, those 2 things pointed out a lot of things to elected officials they didn't realize. I think some of them were disappointed to see that we're so much of our town can be, the Wild West and neighboring, quote, rural Henderson County. We're more dense than they are. There are 2, we're at what, 30,000 square feet for a house, and they're at 45. So I think there's just a lot to talk about there, and knowing that one of the biggest mission statements that we hear repeatedly from individuals, boards, town council, elected officials is retaining the rural atmosphere. And I think that we owe it to the town and the town council to bring them some opinions. We're not trying to pass, we're not trying to say this is it, do it, but I think we do owe them some suggestions and some guidance. I don't think
can
that's
we,
out of line.
yeah, can we have a discussion, create a document that is a suggestion or from the planning board of some things to consider with this project?
Specifically regarding the mixed use.
Right.
The bulk of it's going to be mixed use. It
Right.
could be something else, but
Mhm.
for me, it's mostly the 2/3.
I mean, you're welcome to discuss it here and provide me feedback. Again, I thought that was what was going to happen tonight, but again, we're just providing you the material.
And as did I, that was what I thought was some discussion on it tonight, but we can.
No hearing aids. I don't know what you guys
Yeah.
are talking about.
So, I mean, I guess my ask would be, would you like this to be put on the next agenda as another discussion item, or
Yes.
would you just like to add it as an additional item that the
Tonight.
planning board talks about at its pleasure?
I think I think what happened is you clarified that some of this was FYI information. Michael
Right.
confirmed that, and you saw that as the move on point.
Yeah, I
don't
agree.
think the
I
group
thought
wanted
that
to
was the
move
move on.
although
So
I'm slow processing.
thanks for bringing that up. Yes,
But
absolutely.
please ask them if that's.
I thought that came up for discussion at council vaguely. That's why we're here.
No.
And you're already talking about the consultant.
So what I heard was that when the planning board looked at the zoning assignment for the potentially annexed properties, there was conflict about whether to assign mixed use because that's everything that was around there, but mixed use didn't align with rural residential future land use map district. And then looking at the adjacent Henderson County land, R2R or R2, whatever it was.
Both.
Again, that's much more restrictive, almost like our MR30 district, houses, churches, parks and recreation, public facilities, et cetera, but no commercial. So what I heard was that to bring it to this agenda as just a discussion item for the planning board to talk about and go from there. And I just pulled what resources I could find from the comprehensive plan that talk about both sides of the argument. Some of these comp plan objectives talk about having commercial intermixed with residential. Some of them talk about not having commercial in areas where there's no public utilities and we want the town to remain more rural. So again, that's more information for the planning board to digest and discuss when you're ready.
And I understand or understood that the consultant, when they're chosen, will come speak with us, give us some information, take our thoughts at that point, and help that in guiding the direction of their plan as well. Does that sound reasonable?
That's
Yeah.
correct as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's 2 things going on. Whether the planning board wants to just have a preliminary discussion about this. I mean, like Mr. Ross is mentioning, just opening the conversation before we even get into hiring consultants, so we kind of know how people feel and which direction we're going. But you're absolutely correct. When the consultants are hired and when we go down this process, all of that will be comprehensively looked at. And again, some people zoning codes, oh, it's boring. Well, this is what controls development in this town. You know, we don't pick and choose who comes in. We make sure they follow these rules.
Right.
And, you know, this has been a big push of mine because these codes have not comprehensively been updated. And especially since we've done such a good comprehensive plan adopted in 2021, we need to make sure all this is in line if, you know, we want Mills River to develop the way the citizens want it to.
So a procedural question here, since we brought this up, do we need to add this to our agenda right now, or do we need to send this to the next meeting just procedurally? Are we
No,
okay to keep
you're
talking?
under additional items, board
Mhm.
comments. So
Board
the
comments.
floor, the floor
So
is
it's a
open.
perfect time.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I thought. I mean, when we talked about this before, it was, yeah, with this inconsistency. I mean, I know these two maps are different, right? Zoning map and the future land use map. So,
Michael, is there any way you can put those up? We have them back to back, so we can't look at them at the same time. Is there any way you could put them up? I'm sorry, they're on the same piece of paper, so.
there are different maps, yeah.
Well, the one's the current zoning.
No, I understand the difference. What I'm saying is if there was input or we had discussion, you know, and there was a conflict with the thought of what current zoning is versus
Rural residential.
well, no, the map, zoning map versus land use vision map, they're two different maps for a purpose and a reason. I get that. But when you add the description of the land use vision map categories and it says rural residential, that description doesn't match mixed use. And that's the
Right.
discussion I thought we were going to
Right.
have. And what our thoughts or inputs were, whether it was down zoning or anything else. I thought that was what we were going to discuss as a planning board. So that was just my thoughts.
If we're ready to discuss it tonight, then we've got all the.
I think
I'm
it's more
for
than
it.
one meeting, so I think we should start. Even if you cut, even if you cap it at 15 minutes, I'm fine with that.
But I have a question, and that is ultimately, we can have discussions, but what can we actually do as a planning board at the end of these discussions? Anything or?
Well, we never really can.
No, I know it's up to town council. I'm saying,
Right.
that's my point. I mean,
Right.
to the extent of what we can do,
I think
but
we
is
owe
there-
them that advice, whatever that advice is.
right, in whatever form that is. And that's my question, what form of advice or recommendation can we come up with as a planning board?
This end of the table's on the same page, you guys.
I think we're on the same page, all of it. I don't see why we wouldn't be.
Yeah?
Aye.
Okay.
So do you want me to just walk through the background
Please.
of how
That'd be
these are
great.
used? So I've got attachment A up, which is the zoning map. It's not the completely updated one, but it's the one that's included in the comprehensive plan. So again, Mills River mixed use, which is all in the green, covers about 3/4 of the town. We actually at the staff level refer to it as open zoning almost, because that's basically what it is.
If y'all are familiar with rural Transylvania County, they have open zoning, and when he says that word, it is open.
Yeah, because again,
It's all by right.
the district description says all commercial and residential use is allowed. Now, again, the higher impact developments, tiny home parks, mobile home parks, multifamily, that's all going to go through, well, what is special use permit
Conditional.
now, but is changing to conditional zoning. But basically a different review process where there's a higher level of scrutiny. But you're correct, in mixed use, the use is allowed by right. It's very, very open. Now, if you look down to our future land use map, everything in the green here is the rural residential future land use category. So this was adopted as part of our comprehensive plan to basically inform policy decisions and land use decisions going forward. This was a map created, say, again, with community input, with board, advisory board, and elected official input, saying these are the types of land uses we want in these areas of town. So if I scroll down, you can see the rural residential category here, and I included this first page, so it's a bit of a longer description. Let me just read this into the record. This category emphasizes maintaining the rural character of the community. Development will include a mix of agricultural uses, rural homesteads, low-density single-family development, and low-intensity employment uses. And then again, how we look at things, if they're consistent or inconsistent, is which category they fall in this future land use chart, we'll call it. So under rural residential, your desirable land uses are parks and public space, trails and recreation, agriculture, and estate lots or large lot, single family residential. Your acceptable uses are civic and community facilities, schools, and traditional single family residential on 30,000 square foot lots. And then not desirable, industrial, commercial, and multifamily. So the conflict that immediately shows itself is we have mixed use overlapping with probably 85 to 90% of the rural residential
Which is
future land
attachment
use
D
map.
here, the 3 pages of
Right.
But
heavy industry.
mixed use allows commercial by right, and that is considered not desirable in that future land use district. And that's kind of the quagmire we're at.
Just to clarify, the 2040 comprehensive plan has been adopted by town council, but it doesn't supersede the by right.
And it's a policy document, so
The guide,
council can make decisions that go against the comprehensive plan, but by doing so, it actually amends the plan to be in line with that decision. And let me just read this to you, because this kind of highlights the purpose of all this. The land use vision map establishes a framework for shaping future development patterns in the town of Mills River. The map is a policy tool that is used in formulating land development regulations, making current planning decisions, and prioritizing public investments. As the town works to approve, incentivize, and discourage particular types of development in different areas, the map will be used as a guide for decision making. The land use vision map is not a regulatory map. So again, it's not a zoning map we use in making development decisions. The zoning categories in the Code of Ordinances dictate the allowable uses and specific development regulations that apply to each development proposal. As the Code of Ordinances is maintained and updated, the underlying zoning districts and other zoning ordinance regulations should align as closely as possible to the categories in the land use vision map. And that's where that comprehensive approach from the consultant will really come into play to make sure everything is working in sync as envisioned by the citizen and boards and elected officials.
In the 2-year period of this project and the speed at which Mills River is being developed, I mean, that's a long time period before we have a decision on this. So there's not a way to shorten that.
Not with the consultants. Now, I mean, if the planning board wants to pull council to do a town zoning map change, I mean, that zoning changes can.
in theory, zoning change could happen before the consultant is even hired or before they finish or during. We don't just pause everything until they're done.
No. Well, and again, mixed use has been around since incorporation, so.
Right.
But
The concern here is developers are going to come and do things that we don't necessarily want done before we can even get ahead of that.
That's the point. Yes.
So would there be a benefit in us taking a statement to the town council and say, we understand this, we are excited for this. I mean, this is it's a capital improvement, as Michael said. It is not a cheap endeavor. It's going to be a massive amount of information, and I don't want the town council to just say, no, we're not doing anything until after that's done. It's just too long. I think we owe, especially based on this comprehensive plan here, we owe a little push town council to say, we want to get ahead of this if we can. If there's a way to do this the right way and it's for the majority of the people, I think that conversation's over. Without trying to just bullet point my wants. I mean, I'd wave a wand and change mixed use in a heartbeat. And maybe that's the answer. I don't know.
The question whether the state for land use is not an overlay over the, I guess it's the other way around, but essentially, overlaying the land use vision map in order to make this, the zone more consistent with this.
Yeah.
So you have your, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Well, you have your crossroads out on 280. 280 is going to be the corridor is got to be separated, in my opinion. If I were waving my wand, I would decide on whatever that is. If we want to use the existing corridor, the overlay, great. That could be a separate conversation, but everything outside of that corridor that is currently mixed use, but not in that corridor overlay, I would love to see that far less dense than it is allowed right now, which is only 30,000 acres or 30,000 square feet to start with density and then use. So two totally different conversations here. Density of development and use is allowed. That's how I see it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with your concept of if you could overlay one on the other,
Mhm.
how, and take the description from the land use vision map and mold that into a zoning for that overlay for that same area, how we do that, I don't know, legally, but that would be my.
There's an overlay map somewhere,
I feel
right?
like that's the kind of the
Consensus,
conversation
yeah.
that we're having, in terms of like specifics, like this is sort of what we sound like, at least some of us are saying, they would agree that this is what we're trying to.
Right.
Like to achieve to the extent we could sooner rather than later before so much of it is already lost.
Your frontage, it's going to be a huge amount of pushback to property owners in that close to the main corridors.
Well, that's
That
where
land
that,
is so much more valuable for different reasons, and I don't think we should touch it.
but you could start with that overlay and then back off or carve out or whatever.
Carve
we're
that
doing.
out.
Right.
Start at where does the rural residential and the MU cross over outside of the corridor?
Right.
Where those two things cross over outside of the corridor overlay, is I would love to see a color splat here for me to simplify that.
And if I'm thinking along those lines, then I would, and I really don't want to complicate this, but it is the reality of it. And that is, if you overlaid that and then carved out the land along 280,
It's not just 280, so I'm referring
Right,
to 280, the corridors.
right, the corridor, then that also says, does then that fall under something that we could categorize as conditional zoning? Right.
Essentially, it's mixed use is probably,
But that's mixed use, the special permit versus conditional, which is, it's not conditional now, but
well, no, it's by right now, leaving things in there. I'm just saying as a starting point, if we could see that map and then
Right.
talk about those are the two biggest changes for me by far.
So just a note. So again, the town as an entity can down zone other people's property. So if you're looking at going from mixed use to MR30, let's say, that's a down zoning, but the town legally can do that. That's what happens in large scale zoning map updates. To Mr. Cole's point, conditional zoning, on the other hand, can only be initiated by the property owner. So
okay.
we as the town could not create conditional districts without property owners' explicit agreement.
We could create an all new zoning.
Oh yeah. So zoning,
In the down zoning process, a new one could be created. It can't be conditional because it's unlimited conversations per parcel, but it could be something else.
Yeah.
Let's say a rural, like an R2R or something.
yeah, MR40.
There you go. So what's the density for 30?
Townwide density is one dwelling per 30,000 square feet, which is about 0.689 acres
For MR 30?
everywhere in town.
So I'm sorry, what's the use difference between MU
Oh.
and I'm sorry, I asked the wrong question.
Uh,
Use difference between 30 and MU.
30, most of the by right uses it's honestly single family homes and religious institutions. Some public facilities
In 30.
in 30. Mixed use, open door.
So that list is not 3 pages of really small font in 30. So this mixed use is all of those things plus these.
So if I'm following this correctly, the land use vision map is a guideline, but it can't be enforced. So the only way to really put some teeth into this is to have some changes so that the zoning matches the comprehensive plan.
They can push back on us, but in theory, we could make that proposal to town council. We don't have to wait this 2 year. We don't even have a consultant hired yet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's my preference, is to move forward and make a recommendation ultimately after discussion, whatever time that is, but, have a discussion, make a recommendation to council.
Because the
Second.
concern is word gets out that we're going to see the boom in that first 2 years. We're going to see projects come in so that they can stay under the old
Which
zoning.
is fine. I mean, there's going to be a ton of public notice, for hearings and discussions, right? I mean, a ton of it. That he's going to be, the consultant is going to be soliciting opinions. It's going to be the opposite of,
a part of the scope of work is specifically public engagement. Again, just like we did for the comp plan.
So without, providing a little bit of steering to that consultant, if the planning board comes to the town council and says, we'd love to see this done regardless of your 2-year project, this
Right.
capital project, we'd love to see this done regardless of that. And let's say some back and forth and 6 months from now, we've got downzoning or rezoning or changing town-wide. That's just part of the consultants. He adjusts and keeps going.
I would be more than
I think this is
happy-
parallel is what I'm asking you to look at it that way.
I would be very happy to come to the council meeting and give the thoughts of the planning board. I'd be glad to do that.
I
So,
prefer to
if
come
we
with
could-
something a little more tangible and Michael, I know
Yeah, I
it's a
wouldn't
lot
go-
to ask, but if we
Right.
could create this map for us visually to see the overlay of X amount of feet, whatever, and all of the roads.
Yeah, I'd like to go to council with a concrete recommendation sooner rather than later.
So that we recognize that 280 is a separate entity.
It has
It's a
to,
corridor.
Well, you start with that overlay.
That
and
way-
Then carve out from there. I agree with that.
So that
maybe
would
there are some
be-
density conversations there. I don't know, but I know the rural residential is at serious risk of surviving. How about that?
Right.
And just to clarify, so what I heard was overlay the future land use map with the zoning map so we can see where they overlap.
Where they overlap,
mixed
where they're
use and
different.
rural residential. have
Correct.
Common ground.
And then
Outside.
look at the corridor overlay district, which again is basically 500 feet from each
Each
side of the road, the whole road. Boylston Highway.
And then we would be looking, it sounds like then the recommendation would really be making would be to downgrade that mixed
Yeah.
residential MRNU
Right.
to an MR30.
No,
Or it can be any, it can be.
It needs to be something different because we've got density and usage and MR30 is already defined.
But
as-
that's where we would make the adjustment at, yes.
So that, and but you're saying we would have to recommend that the council create a new zoning definition.
Or you could rewrite MRMU too, right?
Yes, but I was just going to say these are all separate processes. So just be aware of that. If we're creating a new zoning district, let's just say MR40, for example,
Right.
with 40,000 square foot lots, that's a text amendment. Now, other stuff can be included, but that's going to be separate from a zoning map change.
Usage.
So you're going to want to do, if the board chooses to go this way, zoning district creation, then zoning map adjustment.
Well, that's guidance. that
So someone
we
write those
need,
words
but
down
yeah.
because that's what I want to focus on, what you just said. I've been saying it differently, but if that's what the language you want.
Zoning district creation, then.
Zoning map amendment, yeah.
One versus
Density
the other.
and
or-
uses
Oh, okay.
is what I'm,
Basically talking about trying to maintain more rural residential, right?
Right.
so
If I
mixed
could-
use may be the answer for inside the 1,000 feet, the 500 each way. That maybe just leave it, or maybe we adjust for the crossroads and change it there. And maybe, but I know the rural residential and the rural character statement that Michael just read to us is my number one priority. If I lose on all the other ones, I don't want to lose on that one.
Right. If you could take that general description and put some teeth in it with zoning adjustments, whatever that means, that would be what I would love to see us do. Just take the description of rural residential, put some teeth behind it with zoning and move forward and make a recommendation.
There'll be an example
council,
somewhere,
yeah.
neighboring, somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know which county's got this. It might be an acre and a half. I mean, it might not be 40,000. R40 is 40,000 square feet, so an acre is roughly 45. We didn't change density a lot. I mean, we did increase each parcel by, 33%, but the big picture, I don't know that we're going to see a lot less subdivision because of that. These 500, 700, 800 home subdivisions. If you guys don't know the Fulham Farm, it's coming, right? Could be hundreds of homes. So, is that permit in already? No, okay. So right now, there's nothing that can be done. I mean, that's 30,000 square foot parcel, if that's what they want in that whole area, the entire Fulham Farm. Great for the family, but is that going to fit rural residential? Is it going to fit rural character?
I think we agree that it does it, and that's the point. Let's put
Right.
some teeth behind these descriptions of
Right.
rural
But
residential.
moving that line from 30,000 to 40,000 though is I'm trying to paint the picture of, is that really going to change the density when you're driving by on 280? Not by much. Yeah, I see 90 houses. Now I see 100.
Right,
Now
okay.
I see 80.
Well, that's the point, yeah,
Yeah,
they've come up with,
I'm looking at something more substantial.
right,
If I can get it.
there you go.
I'm asking for your vote. So,
Hmm.
no.
So that's the balancing act, isn't it? That's what we're here to keep Mills River and protect property rights.
I promise you, the town council is going to have strong opinions on this. So I think we come to them knowing that that is nothing but a starting point. But without that, I think we're failing to spur the conversation that we should be spurring.
Sounds good. Yeah, I've run into people all over. I'm proud to tell them I'm from Mills River. I'm number 5 in generations from Mills River, at least on my dad's side. And, you know, that's how do we keep Mills River and grow the way we need to, the way that keeps Mills River. Okay.
Jeff, I appreciate you letting me bring that back up.
Well, of course, I apologize for not giving
No,
you a
that's
chance
right.
before.
Thank you for doing that.
It just didn't even register with me that we could talk about it. I thought it was just, of course we can talk about it, but
So Michael, the next meeting, is that where we're asking Jeff to, or 2 meetings or whenever that map and more visuals can be available, and we'll be prepared with more homework again. I
if,
think this is several meetings, by the way.
yeah,
I'd
I
rather not
agree.
spend
This
3
is
hours
going to
on
be
one meeting.
several meetings and get input from people that, from the public.
Great.
We've got to have input because when you start talking about property rights and adjustments to those, we really need to know.
Would you have a problem with me going to the town council meeting? I think it's next Thursday is the next one, and just bringing up, this is a conversation we're having. Do you have any 2 or 3 bullet points without overwhelming the board you'd like to see us bring to you?
I would be glad to do that Thursday night, next council meeting.
I'm happy to do it. If you're not available, I'll be there.
Well, I appreciate that. One or both of us will be there.
I
and
don't know
we'll
if you're
get
still
that.
teaching, or is that last semester?
That's last semester.
Okay, so you're
Thankfully, this
available
semester
Thursday.
I'm open on Thursdays. So, except last Thursday, I had another board meeting to go to. So, all right.
So just to,
Michael, is that okay, or do you need more from us tonight?
no, so just to clarify, so next meeting, I'll have this same discussion item on old business. I'll have the flume and zoning map overlaid. I'll have some type of corridor overlay map so we can look at areas that might stay mixed use. And we'll go from there.
The only other thing I would ask,
or is it
maybe any
feasible?
sample zoning from a neighboring municipality of acre and a quarter, as much as an acre and a half. I'd love to see.
I would just use Henderson County and Flat Rock. Flat Rock has estate lots for a lot of their more outlying.
A 2 acre
areas.
or 1.
I'll look it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
What's our estate? We don't have an
We
estate.
don't have one.
minimum.
It's
That's
and
it.
again, MR 30 is for 30,000 square foot lots, but there is a section in the zoning code that just says town-wide residential density is 1 dwelling unit per 30,000 square feet. So we would have to, amend that too, but that's not a problem.
Okay.
Okay, sounds great.
Perfect.
Thank you, guys.
Yes,
It's a big one for me.
this is a big one. It's going to take a lot of discussion.
Big one for all of us.
but I am glad we're starting it tonight. And we can help the consultant at least to know what we're thinking.
So Michael, did you say that was additional item board comments for our agenda? Sorry, marking things off. And
That's what we just went
we're up
through.
to staff. Okay.
Unless
Sorry.
anyone else has
Staff updates.
well, I already gave away this one. So we just advertised the RFQ for the UDO this morning, giving firms a month to respond with statements of qualifications. And then staff and the town manager will take it from there in selecting a firm that meets our scope of work. A lot of commercial activity recently. So the shopping center zoning permit was submitted over the holidays, and that's under review now. There is a dental office building that came in over the holidays for the lot next to Valvoline, where that old house was we got torn down. We just finished that review and sent comments to that developer and engineer. And then we also got plans from Pepsi. Pepsi is planning to double the size of their building.
On that parcel?
Yeah, they're exempt from stormwater,
Down the hill or no? It has.
just straight across where their parking area is right now. But they've got enough land, and again, they've been there long enough that basically they're exempt from state stormwater requirements, so the impervious surface issues not there.
They're in the watershed, right?
No, they're not.
They're not, so their impervious doesn't matter for that.
But yeah, a lot of commercial activity. Residential zoning permits are still coming in, but again, just at a slower pace, I think, due to economy rates and everything.
Okay.
All you got.
Thank you very much. Are there any further comments, questions?
I just was wondering, is that, would that be compliant or not compliant with our new lighting ordinance?
I've not looked at it.
It's
Point straight
Oh,
out, right?
straight out.
It's straight out.
It's the opposite of full.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Oh, yeah. It looks,
Yeah.
yeah, it's,
Like sconce type.
downward facing. So those are the ones on the building walls?
yes,
Okay,
all the way along the front, all the way on the side,
got it.
all of them.
Tell you, along those lines, my son bought a telescope.
Oh, we did for Christmas too.
He's
It's not going
sitting,
well.
he's sitting in Saudi Arabia thinking about things he wants to do when he gets home. So when he gets home, there's a telescope on the way. And so he takes it outside and sets it up. There's so much light pollution. He takes it to Parkway, which was closed, but he could get close to the Parkway and set it up. Big difference. So Sunday morning, 12 a.m., did power shut off our line so they could do an upgrade. It was cold, but he scrambled to take that telescope out while it was dark. No, he didn't. He said, it's too cold for the telescope. We went out with binoculars, and it's amazing what you can see when there's not as much
Right.
light pollution.
Right.
We're never going to get like that, but
Never
Let's-
say never.
let's get as close. Well, that's true.
Density will help with that.
And
You know,
there are areas if you are a
stargazer.
stargazer. Again, if you go to Dark Sky, there's a couple different organizations that map it, but there are designated dark sky areas. One I personally went to, I think was like north of Weaverville and Burnsville, way north up there. But again,
Density.
less
That's a bit of a
development.
haul.
It's-
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're
So-
correct. It is amazing what you can see in those certified dark sky areas. Perry is also a good one.
Sure.
Pisgah Astronomical Research Institute.
So, okay. Well, thanks everyone. Thank you for being here. Staff, again, you're awesome. Thanks for what you do. And
I'll make a motion. We adjourn.
you guys are awesome.
Second.
Ladies, yeah.
Oh, we're there, man.
All right. We just had a motion. It sounded like while I was talking, we adjourned. All in favor? Aye.
We're in replay mode, man. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank